At the UFC Baku post-fight presser, UFC President Dana White begrudgingly announced the retirement of Jon Jones, and he has now elevated Tom Aspinall to the undisputed heavyweight champion. And man, it was a sight to see. We're going to check out the presser here in a second. Dana White was absolutely livid, and you could tell he felt humiliated, okay? And I don't feel like enough people are really discussing the real reason Dana White truly humiliated himself over the last couple years with this heavyweight division debacle. A complete embarrassment, a complete mismanagement of the heavyweight division. We're going to break it all down in this video because at the presser, he was not only asked about Jon Jones, he was asked about Francis Ngannou. He was asked also what's next for Tom Aspinall as well. We're going to check it all out. We're going to break it all down. I want to start off with this. I know everyone's dunking on Dana right now. You don't kick a man while he's down, but man, I'll be damned if I don't take a bit of a victory lap making fun of Dana White for what he's done to the heavyweight division over the past few years. I'll be damned if I don't take a victory lap. So let's listen to this from December of last year. Let's take a listen.
But other than that, Jon Jones behind the scene is not a guy that turns down fights.
Would you guarantee 100% we see that fight?
Yeah. I'll say 100%. Yeah.
I know a lot of fans wanted to see Jones versus Aspinall. I think this is best case scenario. Dana White went on a 2 to 3 year tour of deep throating Jon Jones, deep throating him, only for Jones to retire. Dana White elevated Jon Jones more than anybody else in the organization. He was nonstop promoting inactive Jon Jones, and it blew up right in his face. It blew up right in his face. Let's jump into the UFC Baku post-fight presser. Let's jump into that. Let's listen to the retirement here. Shout out to all these like Russian media members, or I don't even know if they're necessarily Russian, but shout out to all these non-American media members who just go there and don't give a rat's ass. They just press Dana and ask him questions that everyone wants to know. They're just straightforward. And Dana absolutely hated this, but shout out to whoever this is asking Dana about Jon Jones. Dana's been in hiding lately about this.
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
As you guys know, I'm not some Jon Jones hater, right? I'm not some Jon Jones hater. There's partly to lay blame at Jon Jones, but the real blame should be saddled on Dana White and the UFC, because what they've done with the heavyweight division has been an embarrassment. Now, me personally, the heavyweight division is dead today. The heavyweight division died today as well. But at the same time, it is so... It's so funny just to hear Dana say this. Let's just listen again. Look at this. Let's actually rewind back and listen to the question to begin with. Let's take a listen.
By clearing the belt.
You said the timeline for Jones, 2 weeks to decide what to do with the title.
By the way, how does... Wait a second. I forgot about this. How does Dana need an English translation for an English question?
Are you using to decide uphold legacy by waiting for Jones or prioritize division activity by clearing the belt?
Prioritize division activity by clearing the belt. Shout out to that woman. Somehow she doesn't speak good enough English. We need another guy with an accent to translate her question.
You said the timeline for Jones, 2 weeks to decide what to do with the title, whether it takes the fight or you're going to strip him. What do you think is more important, to keep the belt there so he can uphold his legacy, or we move the heavyweight division, take the title away from him?
Jon Jones called us last night and retired. Jon Jones is officially retired. Tom Aspinall is the heavyweight champion of the UFC.
Dana is so hurt. This is beyond funny. And I know there's a lot of people who were mad at Jon Jones, and I understand there is some blame to be laid at Jon Jones's feet. Dana White is the president and CEO of the UFC. He let this go on for entirely too long, and he proceeded to embarrass himself. All he did was, Jon Jones. I believe any guy goes into a room with Jon Jones, Jon Jones is coming out of that room. He's got German shepherds. He shoots guns. He smacks spray paint cans out of children's hands who are graffitiing up buildings. You know what a badass he is? sat there and deep-throated him time and time again, only for it to blow up right in his face. Only for it to blow up right in his face. And this all comes back to Francis Ngannou, who we're going to get to in a second, okay? Because he was asked directly about Francis Ngannou as well. But I want to jump over to this because this was a couple weeks ago. I believe this was 2 weeks ago, UFC 316. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. Dana said this at the presser when talking about Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Listen to this.
You believe
Him
it
and
ultimately
Anderson
will happen,
Silva.
though?
Him and Anderson Silva.
By the way, Dana stepped on it, but that guy was asking, a follow-up question to Jones Aspinall talk. And he said, do you ultimately believe it's going to happen? Dana talked over him. Luckily, he presses him again a little bit.
Every time, throughout the history of being in business with those guys, when it comes time to get them fight, it's like dealing with artists. It's interesting.
What's your gut? Like, in your gut right now, does it tell you that fight will end up happening?
What's that?
Like, in your gut, do you think that fight will ultimately end up happening?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it since the beginning, and Jon Jones agreed to do the fight. So Jon Jones was offered the deal and accepted the deal.
So there you go. That was 2 weeks ago. And now Jon Jones has retired. And then also a few minutes, like 2 minutes after this, he was asked for clarification.
Just to clarify there, you said Jon has agreed to fight with Tom.
To clarify,
Someone's asking him, you said Jon has agreed to fight Tom?
you said that Jon agreed to fight Tom, yes?
Jon agreed to fight Tom?
Is that what you just said there? Before, like on the last answer, you said,
Jon agreed to fight Tom, yes.
but he hasn't signed a contract, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's
Well, I mean, you guys have heard me for the last however long. I said, I guarantee you this fight's going to happen. This fight's going to happen. Fight's going to happen.
I guaranteed this fight's gonna. Yeah, Dana. You have a real habit of telling the truth publicly, right? You tell the truth about what's going on behind the scenes, right? You're definitely not two-faced. You're definitely not a habitual liar. Definitely not, right? That's going to make more sense in a second.
You guys told me the crazy shit that was going on Instagram and all these other places. But yes, I've been saying Jon is going to fight Tom.
Well, apparently he's not, because now he is officially retired. Jon Jones is gone from the UFC, and Tom Aspinall is your official undisputed heavyweight champion. Now, we're going to come back to this presser in a second, but I want to show you what Jon Jones posted online. I don't think I can sit here and read all this. I mean, I don't know if it would even be interesting for you guys to hear me read all this, but this is Jon Jones's official statement. Today, I'm officially announcing my retirement from the UFC. This decision comes after a lot of reflection, and I want to take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for the journey I've experienced over the years. And then I'll read the last paragraph. As I close this chapter of my life, I look forward to new opportunities and challenges ahead. MMA will always be a part of who I am, and I'm excited to see how I can continue to contribute to the sport and inspire others in new ways. Thank you all for being a part of this incredible journey with me. The best is yet to come. We'll give a little spoiler for the rest of the video, boys. The best is yet to come. I will get to this in a little bit, all right? This is Jon Jones, hit with new criminal charge in New Mexico for leaving the scene of an accident. Look at this, 10:36, June 21st. Anyway, so this is Jones' official retirement. If you want to, you can read this whole thing. You can find it on his Twitter. I understand the Jon Jones hate, but I do believe there is more blame to be placed at the feet of Dana White, because Jon officially retired basically in the post-fight interview after beating the dead corpse of Stipe. Jon has made it as basically every interview, every statement that he's made since then has been an indication that he was retiring. He was recently on the Nelk Boys podcast where he says, I have no interest in fighting, but I'm waiting for the UFC. What I believe truly happened here, and I know I've been on the fence. Is Jones trolling? Is he not trolling? I've been leaning this way. I've been leaning that way. I've never really died on a hill with an official take. But I do believe what actually happened is the UFC and Dana White used Jon Jones as a negotiating chip with a partnership deal with their new streaming rights deal. This tells me it's done. They used Jon Jones in those negotiations. They say, look, we got Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall coming up. It's going to be huge for the sport, Netflix. It's going to be huge for the sport, ESPN. And I guess they officially hammered out that deal. At the press conference, also, Dana said they're increasing events for like Dana White's Contender Series fights at the Apex. That tells me they hammered that into the new deals. Dana White did an interview with Sports Business Review Journal recently talking about that as well. So they used Jones as a negotiation chip to secure more money in their next streaming rights deal at the expense of fans, at the expense of Tom Aspinall, at the expense of the dead heavyweight division. That's what they did here. And while Jones is, being a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Being a little bit, vague or, I'm looking for a certain word, but I cannot think of it. While he's being evasive throughout different interviews, but he's kind of said from the beginning since he beat Stipe, even before he fought Stipe, I don't really have any interest in fighting Tom Aspinall. For whatever reason you may think that is, whether you think he's scared, I don't necessarily think he's scared. I think he has more to lose than gain against Tom Aspinall. He's already made all this ridiculous amount of money. And he's like, you know what? I'd rather not risk it against Tom Aspinall. I actually have no problem with that. But this decision should have been made over a year ago. Or not over a year ago, basically 9 months ago when he fought Stipe. It really should have been done before that because fighting Stipe Miocic was an absolute abomination. People say, Joe, will you take up for Jon Jones? Because I say Jon Jones shouldn't have to fight Tom if he doesn't want to. He should just retire and let the division move on. That's been my take. But there was no one more critical than Jones versus Stipe. You can find hours and hours and hours of me criticizing Jones versus Stipe. And what annoys me even more is people acting like Dana White and the UFC held up the division only for like 9 months since the Stipe fight. No, the division's been dead in the water since March of 2023. So we're talking literally 2 years and 3 months the division's been dead. Jones fought once in that time, and granted, I know he was injured, but we're getting a Stipe Miocic fight, the dead body of Stipe Miocic. Now both of these guys are gone. I just don't get it, man. The UFC really fumbled badly. And I'm going to explain to you why, boys. I'm going to explain to you why the UFC fumbled so badly. But I want to play another clip from this next because he is directly asked about Francis Ngannou. Listen to this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you just canceled out my question. But anyway, I don't know if you heard about this, but seems like Francis wants to come back, and he says he changed his mind. Would you be open for him to come back if he really wants to, and then if he says okay to your conditions?
By the way, let me just let me be upfront about this misinformation that this reporter is reporting basically via press conference, and multiple social media MMA sites have reported Francis Ngannou open to coming back to the UFC. Blah blah blah. Francis Ngannou's coach said he thinks Francis Ngannou would eventually be open to re-signing with the UFC at some point. Not he wants to come back, not that he's trying to sign with the UFC, nothing along those lines. Just that, he thinks Francis would potentially let bygones be bygones. He would be like, thank you for all those dinners, Dana. We took Francis out to more dinners. Oh, I'm about to go off here soon, boys. But anyway, that's just misinformation. Francis does not necessarily want to come back. He just said he was open to coming back. By the way, real quick, I pulled this up for you. Francis tweeted out, did I ever say I'm coming back? But anyway, let's listen to Dana's answer here because this guy's a fucking clown.
Francis says he changed his mind and he would consider...
Hold on, are we getting another English to English translation here? What's going on? Hold on, let me listen to this again.
And then if he says okay to your conditions.
Francis says he changed his mind and he would consider coming back to the UFC. Would you be open to having Francis back?
He would consider coming back to UFC if what?
Maybe if you guys didn't hold him hostage on a shitty contract, only offering another long-term deal. Meanwhile, you're icing him out of his current deal to stretch him along as long as possible because he doesn't like the petty shit you've done to him and he wants to fight out his contract. Maybe that. Maybe offer him a short-term deal. You killed the heavyweight division when you basically let Francis Ngannou walk because you're a petty little bald bitch. That's what. You know what I mean? If you guys know, you know. A lot of fans were taking Dana's side against Francis. What a joke. We'll go off about that in a minute.
Thing I've learned over the years about Francis doesn't always mean what he says publicly. What he says behind the scenes are different than what he says publicly. I'm not a big fan. I would be shocked if Francis ever came back here on lots of different levels. I'm not a fan, and he doesn't always mean what he says publicly.
He doesn't always mean what he says publicly. Is this dude fucking serious? I'm not a big fan of you, Baldy. I mean, seriously, luckily, I don't just scour Twitter looking for random clips that are posted. I went back and watched a lot of this Tampa press conference. And one thing that I have not seen reposted around was this clip that I'm about to show you of him talking about Jon Jones. I already showed you the one clip where he said, I guarantee you it'll happen. I guarantee you it'll happen. This clip I haven't seen anybody really posting, but I find it very interesting because it's very similar to what he just said about Francis Ngannou.
The company, too. It's a big fight.
Yeah, we know Tom Aspinall is down. Jones is kind of like on the fence, or at least that's what he said publicly.
Right.
Have you talked?
It's weird.
How confident?
What's weird about that? Let me tell you what's weird about that. So usually, those guys say that shit behind the scenes and not publicly. Jon says that shit publicly, but not behind the scenes. Jon is a very unique individual to deal with.
So there he goes. He's talking about Jon Jones saying things publicly that he's not saying behind the scenes, and they don't align. But meanwhile, he's also talking about Francis Ngannou, essentially calling Francis Ngannou a liar. Meanwhile, literally a couple weeks ago, he's literally saying, Jon Jones accepted the fight. Jon Jones accepted the fight. We'll just play it again.
Jon agreed to fight Tom?
Is that what you just said there? Before, like on the last answer, you said.
Jon agreed to fight Tom, yes.
But he hasn't signed a contract,
Right.
So Jon agreed to fight Tom. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, right when Dana said this, he knew that Jon was not going to fight Tom. So he was lying right here, saying something publicly when he knew it did not coincide with what was going on behind the scenes. And to have the audacity, we're going to jump back to the actual new presser from UFC Baku, to have the audacity to sit there after you stalled the division for years to say, yeah, I'm not a fan of Francis. We strung him along. We character assassinated him. A lot of the fans then jumped on Francis Ngannou's case with Dana because they're Dana White sycophants, all for it all to blow up in their face. That's why I truly love this, okay? If you're... Okay, let me be very clear because there's going to be people that are misrepresenting my take on this. I think it is an abomination that Dana White and Jon Jones held up the heavyweight division for fucking years. I am annoyed about it. It was ridiculous. But at the same time, I kind of love it. I really do love it, watching it blow up in their face. Because if you're one of these fans who criticize Francis Ngannou, he's almost 40 years old, he's inactive, good riddance, he can't fight anyone outside the UFC, there's nobody for him, he's not going to make any money. Moving the goalpost move after goalpost move to shit on Francis Ngannou and service the bald-ass Dana White. Okay? You deserve this. I'm talking to you. If you're one of those people who crapped on Francis because Francis wanted to use the sunset clause to leave the UFC because they treated him like shit, and you shit on Francis, you talked about him, you said, yeah, he's going to have nobody to fight, bro. I know everything about every organization, bro. He's not going to box. He's not going to make more money. His legacy is tarnished. You deserve this. I wish it would have went on longer for you. Okay? Because that is the day the heavyweight division died. And that's why I haven't really cared about the heavyweight division in a while. Francis was the most promotable heavyweight champion the UFC could have ever asked for or had. He was knocking dudes dead. And then Dana shit on him, so the fans decided to shit on him too. Like it was like 90%. And then Francis went on to make like $40 to $50 million outside the organization. And people kept moving the goalpost to shit on Francis in service of Dana White. So you deserve what the heavyweight division is today, okay? You deserve it. And for Dana to say, Francis says a lot of things publicly that he doesn't mean privately. That's what you do every day, Dana. You're a habitual liar. You habitually misrepresent the truth. You crap on the MMA media, not because you want objectivity, it's because you want obedience. Like Chael or Bisping or any of these other Dana White sycophants who pander to Dana, who were scared to ask him one even leading question or one critical question, who were scared to press him. They beat around the bush. You could see them squirming in their boots when they're asking Dana certain questions they know in their minds he's not going to be happy about. But the reason this so beautifully blew up in Dana's face, Francis Ngannou fought out his contract when he's getting paid peanuts. He left the UFC under the sunset clause, which means the UFC couldn't hold a fighter more than 5 years after they signed their deal. They put that stipulation in the contract because of the litigation going on with the class action lawsuit. Francis Ngannou got the fuck out of here. And Dana said, oh no, my heavyweight champion, he left. He embarrassed me, humiliated me because he didn't want to be used and abused by me. Pause. We iced him out. We tried to bully him. We took him to more dinners. We threw the kitchen sink at him. Hunter Campbell. Francis left. One of the greatest heavyweights ever in UFC history. One of the most promotable guys in UFC history. A guy who had a beautiful story that you could promote. And he left. He took his services elsewhere. So instead of Dana saying, you know, we couldn't work it out. It is what it is. He had to try to diminish Francis at every turn. And the way he did that was to gobble up Jon Jones every weekend for 2 years. Francis Ngannou, he didn't want to fight Jones. I know what these guys said behind the scenes. I know what Francis said behind the scenes. He didn't want to fight Jones. He was scared of Jones. He made it seem like that. I covered this extensively. Meanwhile, when Jones was negotiating with the UFC and Francis was the champion, he was acting like Jones was scared of Francis. I've covered this extensively. I'm not going to get into that too much. So he gobbled up Jon Jones in spite of Francis because he didn't like Francis. He didn't want there to be any question who was the best heavyweight in the world. No, it's Jones. It's not Francis. Look at Jon Jones, German Shepherds. And it blew up in his fucking face. And it's the best thing that could have happened to Dana. So he sucked off Jones. Then Jones ultimately told them, he was basically saying before the Stipe fight he was gone. But Dana couldn't help but see those money signs. And he also looked at the fact, well, you know, I've been saying this fight's going to happen. I've been going to kick bat for Jon Jones and promoting him more than any fighter in the entire organization. And so now I'm going to keep waiting and waiting. They knew months ago. They probably knew 6 months ago. And instead, Dana couldn't get those money signs and that embarrassment. He couldn't shake that off. So he kept delaying the inevitable. And now finally it bit him in the ass and he had to announce this and he was so upset. And now, what's even crazier is the UFC heavyweight division is dead, boys. It is completely dead. You tell me who's here. You tell me who's here. Let me pull up the rankings real quick. I should have had this ready. You tell me who's here, boys. You tell me who's here. Who in the heavyweight division is here anymore? So get rid of Jones. We got Aspenol, Gane, Volkov, Pavlovich, Blades. Blades is a complete scrub. We saw him lose to Kuniev tonight. I don't care if it was an actual decision win for Pavlovich. The most interesting matchup right now is Tom Aspinall, Jalton Almeida. They're not going to make that. They're going to make the Cyril Gane fight. We all know that. We'll get to that in a second. How dead is the heavyweight division? Waldo Cortez Acosta is number 7. Waldo Cortez Acosta is number 7. At one point in time, had Dana not been such a stubborn, greedy son of a gun, we could have had Jones, we could have had Ngannou, we could have had Aspinall, we could have had Stipe, along with these other cast of characters, Gane, Volkov, Pavlovich, Almeida. We could have had a decent heavyweight division. But instead, now we have this, boys. We have this. And the fact that Dana wouldn't even question, would you consider bringing Francis back? He scoffs at it. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Ngannou. I'm not a fan of him. You wouldn't consider bringing the one compelling matchup you could bring to clean up this mess you made, stalling out the division for literal years? For literal years? By the way, I don't know if I showed this or not. I meant to show this. Now I just thought of it. Tom Aspinall, this was his reaction. Tom Aspinall, for you fans, it's time to get this heavyweight division going, an active, undisputed champion. My question is, when is he fighting? My question is, when is he fighting? Because right now we're booked up until October, essentially. So he's not going to fight till October. He's in 4 more months. I hope they throw him on another card. I wish they could throw him on 317. Throw him against Fat Kuniev. Tubby boy. Not Michelin man. Pillsbury Doughboy Kuniev. He just got to win in the top 5. Let's throw him against Tom Aspinall. Anyway, to wrap up the Ngannou stuff. Dana was humiliated by Francis Ngannou. And despite Ngannou, he glazed Jones for years upon years upon years, only for it to blow up in his face. And now he has a dead heavyweight division. And it's just an embarrassment, man. We could have had Tom Aspinall knocking out bums for 2 years. Instead, Aspinall wasted over a year of his career, arguably in his prime, waiting on Jon Jones because Dana thought that's what's right. That's what's going to make the most money. And what's crazy is Dana doesn't even regret it, but we'll get to that in a second. Next clip I want to show you. He's asked specifically what's next for Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, with Tom Aspinall being an officially champ, who is the number 1 contender right now? Whether it's Volkov?
So International Fight Week starts Monday in Las Vegas. And Tom will be in Vegas all week with us, so we'll get together with him and figure out what's next.
We'll figure it out. You need to have him here this week to figure it out. You've known for months. I mean, what is going on here, man? I know he's not going to announce it all right now. How funny is it? He's literally showed up and announced Jon Jones' retirement at UFC Baku post-fight press conference in the middle of the afternoon. But yeah, we don't know what's going on with Tom Aspinall. I'll tell you one thing. It's probably going to be gone. That's an embarrassing matchup. I'm happy to get the division moving. That's a complete and utter embarrassment. By the way, I don't know if I showed you guys this. I meant to put this up on screen. Sorry, this video is all over the place. It's late. It's getting late, all right? I was up all day watching fights and live streaming fights. Dana White almost crying as he announces the retirement of Jon Jones is hands down my favorite moment of 2025. He spent all 2024 glazing Jones because of his insecurity from Ngannou leaving the organization, and ultimately it backfired gloriously. There you go. That's summed up in one tweet of the Ngannou stuff. Anyway, he has no idea what's going on with Aspinall. It's probably going to be the Cyril Gane fight. It should be the Jalton Almeida fight, I feel like. Maybe a Volkov fight because Volkov got robbed by Gane, but that would be a rematch. There's no interesting matchups in the heavyweight division. I mean, the only one that mildly interests me is Aspenol versus Almeida. Nothing else. So all those people that were shitting on Ngannou for years, saying Ngannou has nobody to fight outside the organization, man. Who's Aspenol got to fight in the organization? All this is trash, man. Straight up garbage. Next question is Dana is specifically asked, I'm going to skip ahead now. That was all in one foul swoop. Do you regret giving Jones all this time? Listen to this.
Back to the Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones situation. Do you somewhat regret the time that you gave Jon Jones to make his final decision?
Another foreign media member finally just pressing Dana, man, just smoking him, man, because you know he's not happy. Look at that look. He's like, where's all my sycophants at? Let's continue.
Took so long and the whole division.
Do I regret the time that I gave him? Yes. Listen, if you look at what he's accomplished in the sport, no. It is what it is. I obviously feel bad for Tom that he lost all that time and obviously money, but yeah, we'll make it up to him.
Cut him a check right now, Dana. We'll make it up to him. We'll make it up to him. Pay him now. Take care of him. You made him sit on the sidelines for years without pay. Meanwhile, he's begging for a fight, almost embarrassing himself on the sidelines. Pay the dude. I mean, ridiculous.
Tom Aspinall's a good guy. He's been incredible through this whole process that we've gone through. He's been willing to do anything, fight him anywhere at any time and do this. And now he's like, I'll fight anybody. You tell me who and I'll fight him. So Aspinall's been great. He's going to be a great heavyweight champion for us. And I'm excited to work with him.
It literally sounds like someone scripted that for Dana. Look, he literally looks like he's about to cry. I'm dead serious. He's about to burst out in tears because Tom Aspinall is the undisputed champion. Not because Tom Aspinall isn't promotable, but because of the whole entire Jon Jones debacle where he's embarrassed himself. And listen, I honestly believe this could have all been avoided if they would just let Jones retire after UFC whatever the hell, 290, it wasn't 295. That was the original where Tom Aspinall won the title. 309, if I'm not mistaken. Should just let Jones retire in November after he fought Stipe. But that was an embarrassing matchup as well. Should have never happened. And you wouldn't have been dealing with all this. Or, you know what Dana should have done? He should have reached out and found a way to get Francis Ngannou back. Should have found a way. Imagine he came out tonight and said, Jon Jones retired. Official UFC heavyweight title up for grabs. Tom Aspinall, Francis Ngannou. The fans would have been like, forget about Jon. And that would have been a banger matchup. That's the only banger matchup they can make right now. But instead, Dana's like, yeah, I'm not a fan of him. Does anybody honestly think this guy speaks for MMA fans anymore? I'm not a fan of Francis Ngannou. Imagine not being a fan of Francis Ngannou. I mean, this dude's about to cry because Tom Aspinall is his undisputed champion. I mean, what a beta soy. Anyway, last couple things I want to check out before we get out of here. I already showed you. Ngannou said, did I ever say I was coming back? This was basically misinformation regarding Ngannou's coach. He did an interview. But the other thing I want to check out, okay? Jon Jones hit with a new criminal charge in New Mexico for leaving the scene of an accident. We don't know if this is 100% certain or not. It's a charge. It's a misdemeanor. He probably will get off with it. If he's genuinely getting into an accident and then leaving the scene, I mean, seriously, what a total and utter piece of shit. He's done it before. We know that, you know. My question is, I know for a fact that, you know, nobody really brings up this part of it. When Jon Jones hit that pregnant woman years ago, the best decision he ever made was to run from the scene of the crime. Because I will bet my life that he was drunk. Basically a hit and run is better for Jon Jones's criminal record than not a hit and run, than driving drunk and hitting someone and causing bodily harm. So he ran. He said, oh, I was scared. He ran to sober up. My question is that what he did here as well? You're 40 years old getting drunk, out driving your car, hitting and running people? Because if you're in a minor accident, which supposedly this was a minor accident, you're running from the scene of the crime? Like, dude, you got money. You can literally pay for the person's car and be okay with it. You don't even have to involve your insurance if you don't feel like it. Even if you involve your insurance, you can just pay the extra, you know, premium that you're going to get your premium jacked up. So in my opinion, 100% my opinion and pure speculation, he was under the influence when he had this accident, if this accident did in fact happen. And he ran from the scene because he did not want to get a DUI. He's already had too many of those. So it's just, obviously someone knew this information and was sitting on it. They wanted to announce it when next Jon Jones news got announced, whether it was a Jon Jones fight or a Jon Jones retirement. They waited on this, boom, they dropped it as soon as the news came out. The last thing I want to end on, and I know there's a lot of Jon Jones haters out there, and I understand it. I 100% understand it. But people acting like Jon Jones's legacy is hinged on the Tom Aspinall fight, I believe is completely delusional. Okay, I know people play revisionist history with all these fights and these different wins and, well, this or that and blah, blah, blah. This is an amazing resume. Now, if you want to say his legacy stained by steroid use and, you know, the constant criminal activity and whatever you want to say, the character kind of flaws of Jon Jones, fair enough. You want to say that stains his legacy, but to act like these wins are somehow erased because he didn't fight Tom Aspinall is just simply not true. This was a crazy, insane streak that I witnessed, okay? You had to be there in the time period. Because people are rewriting like Shogun Hua isn't a good win, or Quentin Rampage isn't a good win, or Lyoto or Rashad isn't a good win, or TRT Vitor isn't a good win, or Gustafsson twice isn't good wins, or Daniel Cormier twice isn't good wins. One of them doesn't count. Look, I understand Jones hasn't done much lately. The last time he got a decent win was really back in 2018, to be honest. Or I guess Cyril gone, 2023. But one decent win since 2018. I get it. That does not erase all this prior, okay? Which is crazy how many canceled fights and steroid allegations and steroid tests popping and whatnot. But, okay, he didn't want to fight Aspenol. I do believe he'll be back. I'll end with this. I do believe he'll be back. Aspinall's not going to last forever. Nobody at heavyweight does. Jones knows this. That's why he's getting out while the getting's good. Nobody lasts at heavyweight, no matter whether it's JDS, whether it's Kane, whether it's this guy or that guy. There's always the next new guy, okay? Nobody at heavyweight ever lasts. I believe if Aspinall gets a couple wins together and then eventually loses, which who knows how many wins Aspinall's actually going to get. He might get a few, but the heavyweight division is dog shit, but at the same time, it never happened. So historically tells you that Aspinall's not even going to win his next 3 fights. That's history, okay? I'm telling you right now, if Aspinall fights Gane next and he loses, Jones will announce his return just to troll the fans and come back and fight Gane if the UFC allows it. If Dana lets his ego get out of the way, that's what will happen. I do believe eventually, no matter what, Jones will be back for some type of fight. But unfortunately, we're not getting Jones, Tom Aspinall. The heavyweight division is dead. Dana's not open to bringing Francis back. And that sums up the entire situation. I'm getting out of here. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, turn on notifications, and thank you so much for watching.